Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Amy Brodsky, and I'm here with my great friends, Dr. Amy Taub and Dr. Carolyn Jacob. And we're doing a Zoom call. It's August 26, 2020. We are in the year of COVID, and we're really just talking today about being moms, dermatologists, doctors, practice owners. And so I'll start with myself. My name is Dr. Amy Brodsky, and I've been practicing derm since 2002. And I started my practice in 2007. And we have offices in Glenview, Park Ridge, and Wilmette. And our office is called the Derm. Carrie, you're next.
I'm Dr. Carolyn Jacob, board certified dermatologist and did a fellowship in cosmetic and laser surgery. And I've been practicing since 2000. My office is Chicago Cosmetic Surgery and Dermatology, one office in downtown Chicago and River North, which has been open since 2005.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Taub. I'm the founder of Advanced Dermatology in Lincolnshire and Glencoe. And I'm also a clinical professor at Northwestern University. I'm the old one in the group. I started my practice in 1989. It's been 30 years. No, I take that back. I've been practicing since 1989, but I actually didn't start my own practice until 2003. So that's an interesting story in itself. And this is fun.
Yeah. So the three of us are friends. We're colleagues, we're mentors. So what I thought about today was just to talk about how did you guys decide to open your own practice?
Sure. So I went into dermatology. I was first interested in dermatology because I developed psoriasis when I was 14. And I went to the dermatologist, and at the time his wife was pregnant. And I said, if you need a babysitter, let me know. So I actually started babysitting for him, and then actually worked in his office as well because his wife was the manager. So we would kind of switch hours with the kids. And that got me very interested in dermatology because it looked like a really good specialty to be able to do a lot of things with your hands, see a lot of different age groups of people, but also maybe have kind of a more 8 to 5 job and get married and have kids, which was a big part of my plan back then. Little did I know that getting married and having kids part wouldn't happen until much later in my life. But I've never regretted a moment of my choices. I also got into my derm residency because of his helpful recommendation when I was interviewing. Did the same residency program that he did. And so it was really kind of cool to follow in his footsteps, almost as like my second dad. And then during my fellowship, my staff and the physicians at Harvard decided 3/4 of the way to open up their own practice. So I kind of watched what they did in actually building out an office. I helped Jeff Dober push a laser across Route 9. This is probably illegal, but that's what we did. I helped put together the office and did all the file. Everything was paper back then, but filing things and organizing things, because that's one of my fortes as a Virgo. And so I kind of watched what they had done and was very interested in having a practice similar to theirs. And you have to start somewhere. So I took on a job in Chicago, loved the people, but it just wasn't exactly the right feel for me. So I ended up doing my time as an independent contractor to make some money to then be able to open up my own practice, which is where I have landed since 2005. And one more step further, apparently I love build outs because I then just moved my practice, same practice, just one location, not like you guys, 2 blocks away from my old practice because we needed more space. So if anybody needs any expertise on HVAC systems or where to put the outlets, et cetera, I should know it all by now.
What about you, Amy?
Well, I went into practice. I was thinking about starting my own practice initially. And I was going to share an office with an internist that I was friends with. But I decided not to. I didn't have the guts. I didn't really have money. And I really didn't have, I was a little scared. So I just didn't do it. I took a job that I'd been moonlighting at. That was a really good job, a great dermatology practice. But I was there for about 9 years. And when I approached my boss, a dermatologist, about buying in, he kind of pushed me away, basically saying, because by that time I had a child and I was working 3 days a week. And he was like, well, you're only working part-time. And you're only part-time. And I'm like, well, I could buy part of the practice. And he's like, no, I don't. He didn't seem to think so. So I thought about that. And then I just decided that I was kind of a glorified hourly worker. And I felt like, even though I really liked the practice and there wasn't anything about it that I felt that I had to change, but I just felt that I wasn't growing. I felt like I was just going to be stagnant for the rest of my life and I wasn't going to go anywhere. And I don't know why, but I wanted to have more input. So I decided to start my own practice at that time.
That's awesome.
And that was 9 years. Then, okay, I took another detour because then I started talking to other people about it. And it just happened that the internist that I was going to join with was also the president of a multi-specialty group out of Northwestern, which is where I did all my training. And we were good friends. And he was opening an office in Northbrook because I really didn't want to open in the city because I live in the suburbs. And so he said, why don't you share an office space with us? And so one thing led to another. And before you knew it, I was working for them. So I did 5 years as like the director of a new dermatology section of what was then Northwestern Memorial Physicians Group. And after that time, it wasn't, again, like I wasn't happy, but I felt like I had outstripped my ability to grow there also. And in fairness to them, even though they really did as much as they could for me, Northwestern is a big bureaucracy and their focus isn't on buying Amy Taub lasers. So that was a bit of a problem because I really was interested in moving forward with like the cosmetic portion of things. So that's when I decided to start my own practice.
Awesome. My story is sort of similar to Amy's. I actually went to my husband Joel's dermatology appointment with him, and that's when I met his dermatologist. And he was like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So one thing led to another. I moonlighted in Buffalo Grove too, and then I started working at the practice. And I think a similar feeling. I was working for a man, and I was a female trying to be a mother and work, and I just never ever felt like I was going to be a partner. And I think some people are just practice builders and then other people are more worker bees, and I think we can all say that the three of us are more practice builders. And that's when I was like, okay, I was so scared, but I'm like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to open up my practice. And the first day I had 20 patients, and then it just kept going from there. And thank God it's been a blessing. But what do you guys think is the biggest challenge in owning your own practice? Carrie, I'll start with you.
Well, there's a lot of challenges. First of all, you have to understand that it's a 24/7 job. And I don't think that anybody who doesn't own a practice understands how much work we put into it.
Totally
and
agree.
So when there's a lot of people that are saying, well, I should be, I want to be a partner, or maybe I should ask my boss if I should be a partner. I'm like, you got to understand that being a partner means you're going to be doing all sorts of work. I work till 10 o'clock at night sometimes because I have to go home and help out with the kids and put my kids to bed. But I think there's just you really have to want to, you have to love it. You have to absolutely love it and be 100% in, and not be cynical about the amount of time that it takes you, because it kind of becomes your other baby, if you will, besides the babies or fur babies or whatever babies that you might be talking about that you already have. So I think that you just absolutely have to love what you're doing, and you're right. Don't be afraid. It's more about being confident in knowing that, if you build it, they will come, was always my joke.
Yeah.
So that obviously from the movie, but I think that that's the important thing to know. And of course, we all had bases where we worked for a few years first. So there were patients that followed us to our other offices, et cetera. So that made you a little bit more comfortable, but people find you, and you get a good reputation, et cetera, and people find you. I think that one of the hard things about being a business owner is that I'm a mom to 3 really young kids right now. Again, having started that marriage and kids thing really late in life. So it's a little difficult having 3 little ones. And when I go home, I have to turn off everything, just be with them until they get to sleep. And then I go back to doing the work that I need to do. And I think that for me, that works. And I hope to one day be as lucky as Amy, whose son is going into medical school and all that good stuff, who's interested in medicine. Possibly if someone was interested in dermatology too, that'd be wonderful. But my girls are 7 and my son is 5. So they're fascinated with Operation Ouch, which is a video thing that you can watch on YouTube. It's very cute. But I think that that's kind of being the business owner, is that I can't let go of any of the business stuff, even though I want to be with my kids. If something comes up, I have to take care of it. And of course, with COVID, that's brought on a whole new set of challenges, et cetera.
Amy, what do you think the hardest part of owning a business is?
Wow. Carrie said it pretty well. I mean, at different times, it's something different. So, the easiest answer is to say it's the staff, because dealing with people is always very challenging.
I was going to say that, Amy, but I was going to leave it to you.
They don't always, have the skill set or the vision that you have or share your enthusiasm. But I'm not going to lead with that. And the reason is that I did have my issues with staff for many years. And that's not to say everything's perfect now. But honestly, I think the biggest challenge for me over the years has been growth. We have grown so much. I didn't, when I started up, really intend to grow. I really didn't have a vision. I just thought, I'm going to open up this practice and that'll be it. I'll be in this. I didn't even think, it wasn't like I was thinking, I'm going to open this big practice and then we're going to have different offices. Nothing of the sort. So I think that the challenge was growing it. That was very hard for me. The learning how to delegate, the letting go of the fact that when people, I remember one night walking home, leaving the practice, and all the rooms were filled. And I could see the patients coming and going, and I didn't know who any of them were. And I was like, this is really strange.
Yeah.
So I learned to live with that. And then over time, I would say running the practice has actually become easier for me, mainly possibly because of experience, and possibly because I think over time I've been able to really get some great middle management employees that really do share my vision, and they take so much of the burden away from me. So I would say that they're wonderful. But as Carrie points out, things flare up from time to time. And initially this COVID was like, oh my God, you're like looking at like being in business for 18 years and wondering if you're going to be able to stay in business or even if you're going to be alive next year. That was really a couple of very stressful months. And things change all the time. I think that you have to be willing to be really flexible, really creative in solutions, and really be willing to 100% put yourself out there. Nobody's going to run your practice for you.
I agree. I think my biggest challenge is separating the business of medicine from medicine. I love the art of dermatology. I love patients and seeing derm, but the business of medicine wasn't necessarily what I always wanted to sign on to. So the balance of that has been tough. So my next question is, what do you guys do for work-life balance? How do you balance being a mother, a business owner, and a doctor? Carrie, what do you do?
I don't know if there's a balance. It's more like a teeter-totter. Like one day some gets more and the other day it might be the other side. Like I mentioned before, I'm a Virgo, so I'm extraordinarily organized, and I have my day schedule kind of has to be that I have to get up and work out. And then I can go, and that requires help from a nanny right now with my kids. And then I go to the office. And then again, when I come home, I'm with the kids till I get them to bed. And then I go back to doing office stuff. On the weekends, I try to turn everything off. Like you may not get me to respond to an email at all because I don't look at them on the weekends. I have decided that if you really need to get a hold of me, you will text me. I've got my watch. I can read the text while I'm in the middle of whatever the kids might be doing, because I really have to turn it off. I don't want to be sitting there not being the parent paying attention if there was a playground to go to right now, who's doing this instead of watching their kids have a good time. I'd rather be taking pictures of my kids. So that's what I do. And I also try to make that time special for them if I can. And we try to build in family vacation time where we can, or staycation time as it may be now. But it's hard. It's a lot of work. I'm still I work 5 days a week, not seeing patients, 5 days a week doing something at the office, whether it be seeing patients, doing the administrative stuff, doing lectures, et cetera. So it's a lot of times that mommy's gone. And I think that makes it really hard on mothers who work a lot, because we feel like we should be giving a little bit more time to the kids. Whereas a male in the same situation figures, well, I'm the guy, I should be working from 8 to 6 and there shouldn't be any questions about it.
Right.
Well, and then they can come home and have dinner and
Yep.
Sure, they probably have to help out with the kids a little bit depending on how their wife is, but yes,
Yeah,
it's a big deal.
It's a struggle.
That is because we do it all, but I have to say that, this came up once, I believe it was at a laser meeting, ASLMS, and there was a panel of women and they were talking about their struggles. And Rox Anderson, who's the father of lasers and one of the most prolific scientists in our field and one of the most renowned and respected, got up and he was like, I really feel for you ladies. I can't imagine having had to think about all these things. I'm 24/7, 100% in my space of thinking about, science and creativity. And, at that moment, I got up and I said, you know what? It's his loss, because we have the richness of that human connection.
Yeah.
And I think that makes us better doctors. I think that makes us also
100%.
way better ability to realize that you do have to, I don't want to say multitask. I think that's like a terrible word. Juggle multiple competing important aspects of life. The patient's in front of you, the phone is ringing, somebody's telling you that the lights aren't working, the nanny's calling you because the baby is sick. Men, no offense, but most of them don't have to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so I think it makes us particularly well suited to actually being business owners, if you ask me. And I wouldn't give it up, but I will say that there were many, many days when my son was younger. I kind of did the opposite of what Carrie did. I waited until my son was like about 8 or 9. Then he seemed like he was a little bit more on autopilot. Yeah. And I felt like I could start a practice. And although I spent many, many, many days of feeling guilty, and that is just a big waste of time. But it all works out in the end.
Yeah.
And it is hard to juggle. It's really hard to juggle, but it's worth doing. It makes your life super rich and full of satisfying, incredible things that you never thought that you could do. Look at how powerful it makes you.
Yeah. So instead of juggling, I call it spinning plates. So, the guys that have to spin the 5 plates and then they have to go back and spin the next one. So I'm always like just spinning plates, keeping those plates spinning. But you're right. I think that it makes you a richer person for having had that kind of a bond with a child, and being able to show them what a hard worker you are too. I think that that's an important aspect of being an empowered mom.
What about friends and moms that don't work? How did you guys relate, and how do you relate now?
Well, that's hard for me to answer because all of the moms I know have moved to the suburbs and they work, except for I have one new friend that's downtown, and then I have friends who don't have kids. So I don't have, my one friend who's married, has kids, doesn't work, doesn't live in Chicago. She lives in Florida. So I don't really have to deal with that. And I don't live in a neighborhood like you guys do in the suburbs. I live in a 400 unit condominium in downtown Chicago.
Yeah.
So I think that I'm used to being around people that are always working as well. And so there's not as much of that.
I'm on a group text with like 13 moms going off in the middle of the day while I'm seeing patients, and I can feel it if I watch, and I'm like, oh, what am I missing?
Nothing.
I know. And now more than ever, at least I have something to come to and I have a place to go. And I'm so fortunate that I have that. I feel bad for people that have a career that they've left their career to stay home. And I feel bad for people that, don't have a career, but that is a choice and that's a decision. And it's just not a decision for me. But that being said, there's always a day that I feel guilty. There's always that underlying guilt and slight jealousy, but I know in my heart of hearts that that's just not for me. But Amy, I love your advice.
I think the one thing that I do feel like I'm missing out on is more friendships, because it is hard to nurture a lot of female friendships when you have to give to your children, you're running a business, you're a physy doctor, and you've also got to spend some time with your husband.
Right.
So that, it does make it a little more difficult. And so the socializing is much more through couples. And so, that does limit your girlfriend experience. My girlfriends are actually from meeting kids of my son.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate because when my son was really little and he went to preschool, I was standing outside the room the first day, wringing my hands because I was so nervous. He was only 2. And this woman came up to me and said, "You want to have coffee with us? We're going to coffee." And I'm like, I don't know if I should leave him. And they were like, "Yeah, come to coffee. They have our cell phone and they'll call us." So I went, and it turns out that they were all professional people. Like, one was a pharmacist, one was a lawyer, one was an accountant. And they had started this, professional women's play group. And so every Tuesday evening, we went to somebody's different house, and whoever that house was that would order out dinner, and then the kids would play and stuff like that. So that really helped me establish a group. And that was good. That was great for me. I was very lucky. But I don't have anything, like I play tennis a lot now, and I play tennis with a lot of people who don't work. And I don't really have a problem with it. Because I feel like it's important for women to not say anything negative about any woman's choice.
Yeah.
It's like you can't be ever in anybody else's shoes. So, and you never know what's required of somebody or how they feel about it. Right. So I think that if I had been a stay-at-home mom, that would have been, okay too. I just think that we're kind of try to have the best of both worlds is what we're trying to do.
Being a stay-at-home mom is much more difficult than being a doctor.
I agree. Amen.
I've had this whole COVID thing, couple days with the kids at home learning or distance learning, and I'm like, oh no, this isn't going to work. I love teaching, but my kids don't want to listen to me.
Totally.
Yeah, because you have no control. You have no control. You don't go to a place where like things are logically done and people listen to you.
Right.
The kids are just like, I don't care what you think.
I think I'm the worst mom. I feel like I'm always the worst mom. Yeah.
No, you can't think that. No. As long as you do your best,
you just have to love them.
Yeah, as best you can.
I used to think that too. Sometimes I'd feel sorry for myself, and I'd say to my son, "Oh, I feel so bad. I'm the worst mom." And he'd say, "Mommy, don't think that. I don't want you to think that. You're the best mom," and all this. And it's just the cutest thing.
Yeah,
because they don't know.
Your son's going to be a dermatologist. That I'm sure of.
No, he has not decided, and I want him only to find whatever his heart finds as a passion.
We'll check in like 5 years.
I'm 100% okay with whatever he does.
The other thing I wanted to say, which has been so valuable to me, when I first started practicing and I was working for a male physician, it felt so isolating. I was not connected with other female dermatologists. And meeting you guys and the camaraderie that you have and the camaraderie that the other female derms, the Women's Derm Society, has been so valuable to me. And I mean, I feel bad for the dermatologists that don't reach out to other dermatologists and connect and bounce ideas off of each other. And I felt like when I first entered dermatology in Chicago, there was this male competition. There was these competitive practices. And with you guys, I don't feel that at all. I feel like we work together, we prop each other up. And for me, that has been honestly the most valuable friendship I can ask for. So thank you.
Ooh, you're so welcome. I think early in my career, I wish I had reached out more.
Yeah.
And I think that, like if I didn't have my first year residency, I was the only woman in residency. And that isn't bad, actually, because my co-residents were wonderful. And to this day, many of them are my friends. But, reaching out and having a network of people who do what you do, it is really critical no matter what you do, I think.
I do too.
Yeah, and Chicago was such a male-oriented derm group. And then when I started 20 years ago, it started to change. And then obviously, Amy B, I met you when you were a resident and such. And I think part of the thing too is that all three of us love to teach.
Yeah.
And I think that we find our friendship as being more one where we can lift each other up and help each other with our businesses. And we know there's some crisscross here and there, but there's always enough to go around.
Yep.
And it's not about competition. It's about trying to help each other be the best that they can be. And I think that's part of our Midwestern nature as well. So I'm very thankful for that. And I am thankful for the women that work with me too. I've got Dr. Pritzker and Dr. Fine, who are both mothers, they have young kids. And so it's nice for me to have somebody nearby to relate with the exact same kid issues that they have. So that's been helpful. But just trying to sort of lift everybody else up who is a female dermatologist, because we know how hard you work as a mom, as a dermatologist. And then if you throw in the trifecta of being the business owner too, it's pretty impressive. So thank you guys.
Carrie, you've been instrumental in that because you've allowed some women to practice in your practice who have needed to have a home, whether temporarily or permanently. And kudos to you for that.
Yeah.
I think that's
Carrie, you're amazing.
I've really been
amazing.
Super impressed by that.
Me too.
And I think I have learned, I think I used to be more competitive when I was younger. And I've learned that it's a lot more fun to have allies than
I
to
agree.
have.
Yep. It's lonely. It's lonely if you don't, I think.
I mean, who cares if somebody thinks you're the greatest? It's a lot more fun to have friends than it is to have people who respect you.
It's a lot more fun to have a hug from your son.
Yeah.
Yeah. No question about it.
So we're going to wrap it up, but what would you want to say to your kids if they're watching this?
Well, that I love them, that I want them to be whatever they want to be when they grow up, but they have to love what they do. It doesn't have to make a lot of money. It doesn't have to make them a superstar, but they have to absolutely love it and want to put their heart and soul into it. And if they decide to be a dermatologist, then I would love to have them find mentors that aren't me. There are other people, like I've got 2 girls. So if one of them decided to be a dermatologist, I would want her to go talk to other female dermatologists and get opinions. And I think that one of the things that I didn't know, my dad's an attorney, nobody in my family is a doctor, but I think that helping to mentor young children or high school children or college children, whenever they're trying to make decisions, to find a mentor that does what they're interested in, I think is incredibly important, because it's very hard to know what you want to be when you grow up. And my answer to that is you want to be happy.
Love it. Amy?
Well, you don't always know what's going to make you happy. That's the key thing, is to find what.
Oh, and it can change. Yeah.
I don't have anything to say to my son. He's heard it all. So I've already told him that all pretty much the same things that Carrie just said. In fact, there was many times where I asked him, or I beseeched him not to go into medicine if he was just doing that, even unconsciously, to please me or to prove something, or because that's the only thing he knew. And he many times told me, because it's been stressful. It's not like I have a great kid, and he's been really full of joy. It's not like there's not times where he didn't do well on a test or something like that, where it seemed like, maybe he wouldn't get into medical school, very stressful. And I would say, that is not the only thing that there is. There's a big wide world over there. And don't do it just for me. And he'd always say, no, you know what? I want to do it. And you know what? He did have some rocky roads and bumps, but he made it. So I'm super proud of him. He already knows everything that I have to say to him.
And I would tell my kids also, just hopefully find your passion. That's it. But this has been really fun, you guys. I love you both. You are my mentors. You are my role models. And I thank you so much. Have a good night.
Let's play together.